Welcome. So now it's time for us to improve on our end-to-end flow. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is from here I want to return a DTO so that I can hold the ID of the entity which it has. So let me go ahead and create another field here called private long ID. Now our DTO and entity looks exactly alike. So there should be a question, why do we need two classes then? The reason we need two classes is if in future something changes at our database layer, like in our entity, we don't have to modify things on our controller layer in the DTO. That's for the decoupling purpose. Whenever we develop applications, we make sure applications are loosely coupled, not tightly coupled. So let's go ahead and now create another method like this to convert the entity back to DTO. So we will kind of copy, we will go ahead and say public convert. This time we will convert the entity to DTO. And here, if we are converting entity to DTO, then this should take an entity and it should return a DTO. But then what we want is we want to create an object of property DTO equal to new property DTO, and then now start setting the values. But what I want is I don't want to set everything. So I will set the ID and I can get the ID from the entity because now it will be created by the database as an auto-generated field. And what I want is just the property title. I don't need the other details. If I need, I can set it. Set. Or for now, let me just save everything and that's fine. I will copy this and paste it here. I just have to change things here and there. So now this will be all become DTO, 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 DTO. You can send all the data or any specific field which you want. Nothing, there's no issue with that. So copy this and here we'll change it to entity, 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 and entity. And finally, we will return the DTO from this particular method. So we'll say return. That's it. Perfect. So now, if we go to our service IMPL, here we have to return a DTO. So I will say, after this save is being done, we will receive the entity object. So let's hold the entity object inside this same thing. So the same variable, first it will save without an ID field. Once it is saved, it will also have the ID field. So after saving, it returns the entry of the whole database. So this whole row, let's say it saved this new row, so it will also return this whole new row from the database. That's how JPA works. So we are holding that new row in this entity object. And now what we will do, we will convert this to property DTO. Property DTO, because here from this method we are passing property DTO. DTO is equal to, we can say, property converter dot convert entity to DTO. I will pass this and I can return this. That's it. I can even use this, reuse this variable as well here. That's no problem. So I don't have to create another variable. So I can say this and return this. So here we are first converting to entity so that we can save, and then we are converting to DTO so that we can return the DTO. So now from our service layer, the DTO will be returned. So next, where will we go? It will go to the controller layer. And if you remember, what we did is any post method, it should basically just not return the data but also return the response or the status. So let's create that. So we will get rid of this. We will now say response entity of property DTO equal to new response entity, and then the first parameter we will pass is the what we will get it from here. So what we will get, we will accept it inside this. So we will reuse the same variable because for it works like this. First this data will go into this method call, it will get executed, then it will get returned, and we are assigning the same variable. So it is getting stored here in itself. Then we will pass it here and we will say HTTP status created. And now we will modify this method that it will return the response entity. And hence we also have to modify the return type of it. Perfect. So now if we run our application and see if everything is working as expected or not, if everything would work, then we will get a new entity with this details. So it's running now. So yeah, it's starting. And remember, whenever we are restarting our database, data still exists, the old data. It's not going away. The reason is because of the property that we have used here as update, DDL to auto update. If I make it as create, then as soon as I restart, this whole old previous data will be lost. Okay, now the data server has started. I will clean all. Go to here and I will say Jane Doe. I will change the name of the owner, Jane Doe, and apartment 3. I will say Jane, and I will say YYYT1, something like this, doesn't matter. And the price I can also modify. Alright, now if I save, you will see here we will get the same response back but with ID as well, and this ID will be created here. So, and next thing is we will also get not get 200 OK anymore, we will get 201. So let's run this. Perfect. So you see we get an ID 35 and we get the status as 201 created. That's the proper HTTP status code for a post endpoint according to the RESTful Web Services standard. And here we see insert query got created. So if we see what happened, so data came to the controller. From controller, it went to the service. From service here, it went to the converter. This converter, which converted a DTO to entity, and then it came back to service again. Then it went to the repository. Here it's then saved it into the database. No, not here. In the repository, it used the JPA CRUD repository method to save. After saving, it returned the inserted record of the database that we received here. Then we converted again the entity back to the DTO and we returned the DTO from the service. After that, it went back to the controller from service and we received the information here with now it has a DTO with property information along with the ID of which got generated automatically in the database via the sequence. And now we are taking this and setting here, and with the status code we are returning a response entity like this. And that's what we saw here. We got the ID along with the status code. If we check our database, let's quickly check the database. I think the session would have gone. No worries. Let's connect again. Search. So we see another entry in the database and the ID is 3, which we got here as well. Perfect. So this is it for this video. Thank you. I will see you in the next one.